Welcome to the MyLingua podcast. I'm so glad you're here today. Have you ever wondered what your true English level is? Is it beginner, intermediate, or perhaps you're approaching expert? Today, we have a very special episode designed specifically to help you find out. We have prepared 6 unique stories, carefully crafted to take you on a journey through the entire CEFR scale, starting from A1 and moving all the way up to C2. As you listen, pay close attention to the vocabulary, the speed, and the complexity of the ideas. After each story, I will ask you 2 or 3 reflection questions. These aren't just tests, they're designed to help you think about the language and see which level feels the most comfortable and which one challenges you the most. So grab a cup of coffee, find a quiet spot, and let's begin our linguistic journey. Here is our first story at the A1 level.
Hello, my name is Anna. Today is Saturday. I love Saturdays. I wake up at 8 o'clock. The sun is bright. I feel happy. I go to the kitchen. I make a cup of coffee. I like coffee with milk. It is warm and good. I sit by the window. I look at the street. I see a small cat. The cat is black and white. It sits on a red car. But wait. What is the cat looking at? It looks at a small blue box on the ground. I am curious. I put on my green jacket and my white shoes. I go outside. The air is fresh. I walk to the blue box. Is it a gift? Is it a toy? I open the box slowly. Inside, there is a beautiful gold key. I wonder, what does this key open? I walk to the park. The park is big and green. Many people are there. Children play with a ball. A man sells ice cream. I walk near the old oak tree. There is a small wooden door in the tree. I stop. My heart beats fast. I take the gold key. I put the key in the door. It turns. The door opens. I see a small garden with purple flowers. It is very quiet and pretty. I sit on the grass. This is my secret place now. At 1 o'clock, I am hungry. I go to a small cafe. I see my friend Sarah. Sarah has long blonde hair. She wears a blue dress. We eat sandwiches and talk. I tell her about my morning. She smiles. We are happy. In the afternoon, we go to the shops. I buy a new book. Sarah buys a yellow hat. The sun goes down. The sky is orange and pink. It is beautiful. I go home at 6 o'clock. I am tired but very happy. I make tea. I read my new book. My Saturday is perfect. What a wonderful day.
Now, let's take a moment to reflect. Here are a few questions about Anna's day. Let's test your comprehension. List 3 things Anna does in the morning before she goes to the park. Now, let's test your vocabulary. Find 5 color words in the story, like blue. Why are these words important for an A1 learner? Last, let's check your grammar. This story uses the present simple, like I make, she wears. Does this make the story feel like it is happening now or every day? Well done! Now, let's take a small step up. Here's our next story at the A2 level. Let's continue our journey with a little picnic mystery. Last Sunday was a beautiful day. Usually, I stay at home and clean my apartment on Sundays, but the sun was very bright. I decided to have a picnic in the city park. I called my friend, Jack. Jack is a tall man with short black hair and a very big smile. He loves the outdoors. I went to the kitchen to prepare the food. I made 3 large sandwiches with ham and cheese. I also packed some red apples and a bottle of cold water. But then I looked in the fridge. The chocolate cake I bought yesterday was gone. That's strange, I thought. I didn't eat it. I met Jack at the park entrance at 12 o'clock. He was wearing a blue t-shirt and carrying a guitar. We walked to our favorite spot near the lake. The grass was green and there were many flowers. We sat down and opened the basket. But suddenly, Jack pointed at the ground. "Look at those footprints," he said. They were small, muddy footprints leading toward the bushes. We followed the footprints quietly. My heart was beating a little bit faster. Was it a thief? Was it an animal? We moved the branches of a big green bush. Behind the bush, we saw a small brown dog. It was very cute, but it had a messy face. Next to the dog was the box from my chocolate cake. The dog looked at us and wagged its tail. Suddenly, a young girl ran toward us. She looked worried. "Oh, there you are, Buster," she cried. She told us that her dog ran away 10 minutes ago. She saw the cake and felt very sorry. Jack laughed and said, "It's okay, Buster has very good taste in cake." The girl's name was Lily. She invited us to join her family near the lake. They had a lot of pizza and fruit. We shared our sandwiches with them, and Jack played his guitar. We sang songs and watched the white boats on the water. In the afternoon, the weather changed. The sky became gray and the wind started to blow. We packed our things quickly because we didn't want to get wet. Just as we reached the car, the rain started to fall. I went home and felt very tired, but I was happy. I didn't have my chocolate cake, but I had a new friend and a great story. It was the most exciting Sunday of the year.
How was that? Before we move on, let's think about these questions. Why was Elena confused when she looked in her fridge, and who was the thief? Look for words like suddenly, but then, and after that. How do these words help you understand the order of the story? How does the mood of the story change from the beginning, preparing the picnic, to the end, the rain starting?
You're doing great. Now we are entering the B1 level, where the stories get a bit more descriptive. Are you ready for something a bit more unusual? It was a typical Saturday morning in the city. The sun was warming the brick walls of the old downtown district, and I decided to go for a long walk. My goal was simple: find a new book and maybe a good cup of coffee. I started on Main Street, passing the busy flower shops and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery. As I turned a corner onto a quiet side street, I saw a small, dusty shop I had never noticed before. The sign above the door simply said, "The Collector." Curious, I stepped inside. The air smelled of old paper and peppermint. Shelves stretched from the floor to the ceiling, filled with strange objects: brass clocks, colorful jars, and hand-drawn maps. At the very back of the store, resting on a wooden table, was a golden pocket watch. When I picked it up, I noticed something strange. The hands weren't moving, but I could feel a faint vibration in my palm. Suddenly, the shopkeeper, an elderly man with bright blue eyes, appeared from the shadows. "That watch doesn't tell the time," he whispered. "It tells you where you need to be." My heart began to race. I looked at the watch again, and a small door at the back of the shop creaked open, revealing a glowing garden that shouldn't have existed in the middle of the city. I realized then that my simple Saturday walk was about to become an adventure I would never forget. That was a strange shop, wasn't it? Let's reflect on what we just heard. What is unique about the golden pocket watch, and what does the shopkeeper say it actually does? This story uses past perfect, had never noticed. Why is this tense used instead of just past simple? Identify 3 adjectives used to describe the atmosphere of the shop. Example, dusty, peppermint scented. How do they help you see the scene? We are now at the B2 level. The language is becoming more fluent and emotional. Let's head to the attic of an old Victorian house. Moving into the old Victorian house on Elm Street felt like stepping into a different century. As I stood in the center of the empty living room, the dust motes danced in the afternoon sun, almost as if they were welcoming me. I had spent years working in the fast-paced world of corporate law, and this quiet, creaky house was supposed to be my sanctuary. But as the sun began to set on my first night, I realized the house had its own stories to tell. I was unpacking a box of old photographs when I heard it, a rhythmic thud coming from directly above me. It wasn't the sound of a house settling, it was deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight, my heart beginning to hammer against my ribs. I hadn't even explored the attic yet. I climbed the narrow, winding stairs, the wood groaning under my weight. When I reached the top, the air was heavy and smelled of cedar and long-forgotten memories. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on a solitary rocking chair in the corner. It was moving, slowly, as if someone had just stepped away from it. I froze, holding my breath. I approached the chair, but instead of a ghost, I found a loose floorboard directly beneath it. Driven by a sudden, inexplicable urge, I pried it open. Inside lay a small, tarnished silver box wrapped in a silk scarf that felt like spider webs. With trembling fingers, I opened the lid. Inside were dozens of letters, all addressed to a woman named Clara. As I skimmed the elegant cursive writing, my breath caught in my throat. These weren't just old letters. They were written by my grandmother, a woman who had supposedly died before I was born. The letters spoke of a hidden inheritance, a secret garden, and a warning: do not trust the man with the silver cane. Suddenly, the front door downstairs slammed shut. I wasn't expecting any visitors. I crept to the attic window and looked down. A tall, slender man stood on the sidewalk, looking directly up at my window. He was leaning on a polished silver cane. My blood turned to ice. How could he possibly know I was here? And more importantly, what was he looking for? I spent the next hour hidden in the shadows, watching him. He didn't move. He just waited, like a predator. I realized then that my quiet new life was over before it had even begun. I had to find the secret garden mentioned in the letters before he did. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about a family legacy that had been buried for decades, and I was the only one left to protect it.
A bit suspenseful, right? Let's look at some questions for reflection. What is the connection between the letters Maya found and her own family history? Find the sentence containing the word inexplicable. Based on the context, what does it mean, and why is it a B2 level word compared to a simpler word like strange? The ending of the story is a cliffhanger. What do you think Maya will do next, and how does the author create a feeling of suspense?
Now we reach the advanced level, C1. Here we explore complex ideas like leadership and trust. Listen closely to the nuances. Leadership is often mistakenly equated with the loud declaration of a vision, but in my experience, it is far more about the quiet stewardship of a collective dream. My name is Elena, and for 15 years I have navigated the labyrinthine world of urban planning. Last autumn, I found myself standing at a crossroads, both literal and metaphorical. My firm had been commissioned to design the Unity Bridge, a structure intended to heal a decades-long rift between the affluent North District and the neglected South Side. However, the project was hemorrhaging support. The board meeting was stifling. Marcus, the CFO, leaned across the mahogany table, his eyes narrowed behind designer frames. "Elena, the optics are disastrous. We are over budget, the local protests are escalating, and frankly, the structural integrity of your living garden design is being questioned by the skeptics. It's time to pivot to concrete, cheap, fast, and uninspired." I felt the familiar tighten of my jaw. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about whether we were building a barrier or a lifeline. I realized then that to save the bridge, I had to stop selling a blueprint and start articulating a purpose. I invited Marcus to the site at 4 a.m., just as the city was exhaling its first breath of frost. We stood on the muddy banks, the skeletal frame of the bridge looming above us like a giant's rib cage. "Why are we here, Elena?" he sighed, his breath blooming in the cold air. Suddenly, a sound echoed from the south side, the rhythmic metallic clatter of the morning train. I pointed to a group of people huddled near the construction fence. "They aren't just protesters, Marcus. They are parents who want their children to walk to the library without crossing 3 highways." The tension between us was palpable, a visceral manifestation of our conflicting priorities. Just then, a tremor shook the ground. Not a disaster, but a subtle shifting of the temporary supports. Marcus stumbled, and instinctively I caught his arm. In that brief moment of physical connection, the boardroom animosity evaporated. I saw the fatigue in his eyes. He wasn't the villain, he was a man burdened by the weight of numbers. "The living garden isn't a luxury," I whispered. "The roots of those trees will literally bind the soil, preventing the erosion that has plagued this bank for a century. It is engineering disguised as art." He looked at the blueprints, then at the shivering families, and finally at me. The silence stretched, pregnant with the possibility of failure. "It's a gamble, Elena," he finally conceded, his voice losing its edge. "But perhaps it's a gamble the city deserves." Leadership, I realized, isn't about winning an argument, it's about creating a space where someone else can find the courage to agree with you. We didn't just build a bridge that year, we reconstructed the fragile trust of a community, proving that the most resilient structures are those built with empathy at their foundation. A powerful story. Now let's analyze the deeper meaning with these questions. Elena says leadership is about stewardship rather than loud declaration. How does she demonstrate this during her meeting with Marcus? Identify professional or academic idioms or metaphors in the text. Example, hemorrhaging support, labyrinthian world, optics are disastrous. How do these change the weight of the story? Why was the physical act of Elena catching Marcus's arm a turning point for their professional relationship? Finally, we have reached the peak, C2. This is deep, poetic, and natural English. Just relax and let the words flow. The sea has a peculiar, almost predatory way of reclaiming what was never truly ours. I stood on the precipice of the salt-stained cliffs, watching the tide perform its relentless, rhythmic ablution of the shore. My name is Julianne, and I am the self-appointed curator of things left unsaid. For decades, I have inhabited this crumbling estate, a labyrinth of cedar and secrets, where the air is so thick with the scent of petrogor and old parchment that one could almost taste the history etched into the floorboards. I find myself reflecting on the transience of human legacy. We spend our lives meticulously weaving tapestries of achievement, only to realize that time is a master of unraveling. This morning I unearthed a violin case from the cellar, a relic of my father's, a man whose silence was a symphony in its own right. As I pried open the rusted latches, a plume of dust rose, dancing in the amber shafts of light like ghosts reluctant to leave the party. The instrument was a masterpiece of mahogany and sorrow. When I drew the bow across the strings, the sound wasn't merely a note, it was a visceral lament, a resonant echo of every unspoken "I love you" and every "I'm sorry" that had ever been swallowed by the shadows of this house. It was a profound reminder that we are not merely flesh and bone, but a collection of resonances, vibrating in the narrow gaps between the past and the inevitable. Suddenly, a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle, almost imperceptible drop in pressure. I turned to find a young man standing in the doorway. He possessed the ephemeral quality of a memory, his features softened by the gloaming. He didn't speak, he simply held out a hand, his palm calloused by a lifetime of labor I could only guess at. In that silent exchange, a bridge of empathy was forged, bypassing the clumsiness of syntax. We sat in the twilight, the dichotomy of our worlds, the aging scholar and the wandering soul, dissolving into a singular, shared moment of stillness. I realized then that the most eloquent leadership is not found in the roar of a crowd, but in the vulnerability of a shared silence. As the last sliver of sun surrendered to the obsidian grip of the Atlantic, I handed him the violin. It was an inheritance of sound, a torch passed in the dark. For in the end, we are but the echoes we leave behind, and if we are fortunate, someone will be there to catch the note before it fades into the void.
That was the final note of our journey. Let's finish with a few deep reflections. The use of low-frequency or poetic vocabulary like petrichor, ablution, transience, and gloaming adds a rhythm to the story, making it feel more lyrical, adding depths to the narrative. The narrator describes the sea as predatory and the air as thick with history. These are personification and metaphor, which are literary devices that elevate the text beyond a C1 level by creating more vivid imagery and adding layers of meaning to the text. The final idea of us being echoes we leave behind is an abstract concept. The physical object of the violin makes this concept more tangible by representing a lasting legacy that transcends time. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the English levels today. Which story was the easiest for you? Which one felt like a challenge? Remember, language learning is not a race, but a beautiful path of discovery. If you enjoyed this episode of the MyLingua podcast, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, keep listening and keep learning.